Hi everyone. In today's demonstration, I'm going to demonstrate using the US Census API built-in data wizard in Simple GIS to develop a Choropleth map based on pulling some demographic data. And then we'll also show how I can use this information from the Choropleth mapping to also generate a simple heat map if I so choose. So to begin with, I'm going to start with a new project. So I'm just going to come here under the new project under the application window, and I'm just going to use the default GIS project. And at this point, I'm going to give a name for my project. And I'm going to leave it set to my default project location. And then I'm going to select a base map. And really, you could choose any type of base map for this, but for this demonstration, I think I'll use the detailed street atlas because I want to be able to view some county information, and you can do that fairly easily with this base map. And so, again, I'm going to double click on this tile to select this base map. And because this is a local detailed street atlas data set, this can download to your local machine. I'm going to select the entire US, which I've already downloaded. So it's just going to add the data set that I've already downloaded as a base map into my project. And yeah, that's good for now. I'm not going to add any other data. I'm just going to click finish at this point. And now I have my map, and I see I have the US detailed street atlas data loaded. And let's just select a region that we want to use to develop our map. And I think for the purpose of this, let's see, we'll go here and let's select somewhere here in the middle of the country. Let's select St. Louis, for example. So I have St. Louis here. You can kind of see it. Maybe it's a little bit hard. Let me zoom out. So here's St. Louis. Here are the county boundaries surrounding it. So let's say I wanted to create a Choropleth map based upon median household income around St. Louis. And so for the purpose of this, I'm going to look and see what counties are involved around the area of St. Louis. So I see I have St. Charles County. And if you notice, actually, let me zoom out a little more and it becomes clearer. This is actually the division. So St. Louis resides right near the border between Illinois and Missouri. So that's important. So we need to make sure that we take note of that. So we have St. Charles County in Missouri, St. Louis County in Missouri. That's right around the city here of St. Louis. And then we also have Madison County in Illinois and St. Clair County in Illinois, also the kind of surround and border St. Louis. So these are the four counties we're going to use for this demonstration. And so to get the demographic data, I'm going to come to my drop-down menus at the top and select the Data Download Wizards. And I'm going to select this first wizard, this Download Demographic Data from the U.S. Census Bureau. And so what this allows you to do is query data from the U.S. Census Bureau, essentially, well, exactly using the American Community Survey data, the 5-year data set. And so for the purpose of this, you can download data by state. So this would give you demographic data for an entire state, or by congressional district, school district, county, census tract, or by census block group. And this is the one that I'm going to use for today's demonstration. I'm actually going to download it by the census block group, which is the smallest geographic area that you can download this data by. And so again, I have two different states involved here since our area of interest borders the two states. So I need to select both states that I'm interested in. So I have Illinois. And you notice as I click on a state, it populates all the various counties in that state. And then I also have Missouri. So I'm going to also select Missouri, but I need to hold my control key down to make sure that I have both states selected. So as I click on Missouri, as I hold my control key down, you notice it kept my original selection of Illinois. And so now I have Illinois and Missouri both selected. And now I need to do the same thing as far as the counties. I need to select the counties I'm interested in. And again, for reference, let me just move this box down. For Illinois, it was Madison and St. Clair counties. For St. Louis, it was St. Louis County and St. Charles County. So let me pull my box back up. So I'm here in Illinois, so I want to scroll down till I see the counties of interest. So it was Madison, so I'm going to click to select it. And then it was also, what was that other county? St. Clair. So I'm going to continue to scroll down till I see St. Clair. And again, I need to make sure I hold my control key down so it keeps my original selection. So now I have St. Clair. Notice it still kept Madison. And now I need to scroll down to the Missouri counties. And for this, I have St. Charles and St. Louis was the two counties of interest. So scroll down till I find those counties. And again, holding my control key down, select St. Charles, scroll a little further down and select St. Louis. And now I can select the data that I want to pull. This first tab is your predefined query. So these are just some predefined queries based on the ACS data that you can pull from. And the data that we're interested in is already in this predefined query. So I'm going to select the income, median household income. So I'll select that query. You notice it gives a brief description in the fields that it's going to pull in. And now all I have to do is click apply. So as I click apply, it's going to ask me to come up and actually enter in a name for the new layer that it's going to create. So I'm just going to call it median income and click save. And it's going to go through the process of creating the layer. It gives you a status here at the bottom of the dialog as it's processing data. Once it's done, it's going to ask you, do you wish to add a shapefile, which is the data layer that we created, to your current view? I'm going to select yes. And so now I see I have this layer loaded. Of course, it's not as a Choropleth map. You see all the different block groups are all the same color, so it's really not giving us a lot of information. But all the data is in the layer. We just need to set up our legend to be able to visualize the data. In fact, if I was to select this layer and use our View Feature Data tool and click on one of these census blocks, you would see that I actually have a field for that census block for median household income. So that gives you your median income level as well as the margin of error for that particular field value. So to generate our Choropleth map, it's just a matter of setting up our legend for this layer. So to do that, I'm simply going to double click on the layer. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set a filter for this layer. Because some of the ACS data, especially at the census block group level, if you have various block groups that maybe did not get enough sample data to be able to accurately predict a value, there may not be a value for those particular block groups. So we want to filter those block groups out. And the way you do that is just simply under the Layer Properties dialog, come to the Filter Layer Features menu option. And here we can enter in an expression. So first thing I'm going to select that I do want to filter the layer. And then I'm going to click on Add Expression to build an expression to use as my filter. And so as I click on this, this gives you all the available fields in the layer. And the field we're interested in is this MED_HH_income, which is the median household income value. And I can just double click on this field, and I just want to select only the block groups whose median household income value is greater than 0. And again, this will just filter out those block groups where there may not have been enough sample data to get an accurate value. So I'll close this dialog. And now I'm going to set my legend. So I've applied my filter. Now I'm going to go set my legend. So under the Layer Properties settings, I'm just going to go up to Set Layer Legend Symbols. And here I'm going to select the type of legend that I want to use. And the legend I want to use is I want to vary symbol by color or size gradient based upon field values. And so I'm going to select this option. And as I do, some of these other combo boxes become enabled, allowing us to edit values. And the value we want to edit is the proportional class field. So this is the field who contains the values that we want to use a gradient based upon those values on the color. So for the proportional class field, I'm going to click on the drop down and I'm going to select the field containing our median household income. As I select the field, I get a box comes up that allows me to auto classify the ranges. It uses a natural break algorithm to figure out the best way to break. And it also gives you what your range of values are. So the minimum value we have on any given census block is 2,499 and a maximum value of 250,001. So I can also specify how many classifications I want. So I could bump this up if I wanted just to get more classifications. And this gives you an idea of the gradient here at the bottom. And then I do want to use a sequential gradient. I could also do diverging where I would have gradients based around a median value. So I could have one color gradient for values below the median value and a different color gradient for values above a median value. But for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm just going to stick with a sequential. I only want to change the color. Obviously, these are polygons, so I'm just not doing much by doing the size. That doesn't really do much other than make the pen that outlines the borders thicker or thinner. That may be more useful if you were using, if this was a point layer where you just had points and you wanted to change the symbol size based upon, the value in a field. But for this, I'm just going to use color. You can also select the color hue you want to use for your gradient from the drop down. I'm going to stick with red. And then you click apply. And this builds your legend. And now you just simply click apply to apply the changes we just made to your layer. And now you see we have our Choropleth map. So we see that the individual block groups are color shaded based upon these income ranges for the median household income. And so we get an idea. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. So basically this is your Choropleth map. We notice there are a couple of holes here, and that is probably, that was block groups that did not have enough sample data to accurately predict a median income value. But we can view the data on any of these block groups. So for instance, if I click on the layer, the median income shapefile that we created, use my view feature data tool and was to click on one of these block groups, we would see the data. And here's your median household income for this particular block group is 136,000. And we see that is in a little bit of the darker shading. It's not as dark as some of these others. We was to click on one of these darker shaded areas. We would see that it has a higher measure of household income. This one's at 233,000. Versus if we was to click on a lighter shaded area, then it would have a much smaller value. And essentially that's what your Choropleth map does. Now the other thing we could do if we wanted to actually, maybe visually get a little better representation of this, we could use this data to actually create a heat map. And so to do this, I simply go under the menu called Geoprocessing. I click on this to get the drop down, and I go all the way near the bottom, about 3/4 of the way down, maybe a little further, where it says Generate Heat Map based upon selected input data. And at this point, I need to select the type of heat map I want to create. I could do a kernel density heat map, which is good if you had data that you had the full representation of the data. It would do a probability density function to develop the distribution of that data. Or you can do an interpolative heat map, which means I may not have a complete data set. I just have a sample of data set and I need to interpret values over other areas. And really, for this type of heat map, the interpolative would be probably the best heat map to use in this case. So I select the type of heat map, and now I need to specify the input that I want to base the heat map on. So I click the next, specify input layer. I would select my median income. By default, since I didn't have any feature selected, it goes ahead and selects the entire feature set in that particular layer. And then it gives some default information here that it thinks would be the best fit. You can modify this if you wanted to. I'm going to accept the program defaults. The only thing I'm going to change is the select weight field. And so the weight field is what's going to weight the points based upon the income value. So I want to select this drop down and select the median household, not the margin of error, but the median household income, because that's really what I'm basing the heat map on, is these median household income value levels. And now that I have that selected, I click Next, specify output. Now I can give a name for my heat map. And I'm just going to make it simple. I'm just going to call this my heat map. And then I can select the type of color gradient I want, which I can change this after the fact if I need it to. But I'm going to go ahead and specify, and I'm going to go for green for the very lowest values, median household income values, to a red for the highest median income value level. So that's the color gradient it'll use. And now I just click Next, create new heat map layer. And I allow the program to process. It shouldn't take too long, just depends upon the size of the data set that it's processing. But generally it doesn't take very long, and it is now finished. And I now see that it has added this as a layer to my map as well. And so I can see the darker green areas are the areas of lower income values. The deep reds are the areas of higher income values. And then there's this gradient in between those two levels. So I can make this a little more visually appealing. I'm going to turn off my shapefile layer that was used for the Choropleth map. I'm just going to turn that off for now, just so that we have the heat map. And then I'm going to change the transparency of the heat map so we can see some of the underlying area. I see right now, I see the labels on my map, which appear on top, but I can't see any of the underlying features. So I can't really tell, what this information is showing me, in terms of geographic position. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to double click on my heat map to bring up the layer properties. And here I'm just simply going to change the opacity. It's set to 100%, which means it's fully opaque, no transparency. And I'm just going to put it at 50%, about 50% transparency, and click apply. And what that allows me to do is you can see some of the underlying features, so I can tell kind of in the general area where this information is located at. So I can see that there is a fair amount of concentration of higher income levels just to the west of the city. It looks like on this western edge, it seems to be more, basically higher levels in this general area versus especially in the center of the city. And even on the eastern side, there is a little more disparity. There's, higher income levels in this area, but not near as much as it shows to be on the west side of the city. So really, this was a very quick demonstration just to show you again what we covered was using the U.S. Census Demographic API wizard to be able to pull demographic information from the U.S. Census Bureau, how to create a Choropleth map in simple GIS, as well as how to generate a heat map. If you'd like more information or just want to view more about Simple GIS products, please visit our website. That website can be found at Simple GIS Software, all one word, simplegissoftware.com. Thank you.